When the second wave of COVID-19 swept through Malaysia in the March of 2020, the federal government imposed a movement control order in an effort to stem the spread of the disease. The details were rather sketchy at first, but the government only explained more about the order in batches in the days following the announcement. This delay gave room to fake news. There was obvious confusion in the haze, so to set something straight, here are 7 things you need to know about the movement control order, sometimes referred to as the MCO. For this first point, let's look at what your rights and obligations are under the MCO. If you are an employee, your employer cannot force you to take annual or unpaid leave during the execution of the order. If your company arranges for you to work from home, you must be paid your usual salary. If you are ordered to quarantine yourself instead, your employer must give you paid sick leave. But then you ask, what about those of you who took a month of unpaid leave because of this pandemic? Well, you can put in an application for a 600 ringgit incentive that was recently announced. However, in order to qualify for this, you must be a member of the employment insurance scheme whose salary does not exceed 4,000 ringgit. These rights above are on the condition that you comply with the restrictions imposed on you. Failure to comply with the restrictions under the MCO can be punishable with a fine of up to 1 million ringgit or 6 months imprisonment or both. If an officer asks you any questions about disease control and prevention, no, you do not have the right to remain silent on this. You are obliged to provide a truthful answer. If you refuse, you may be fined up to 1 million ringgit or imprisoned for 6 months or both. Should you be the owner of a company, you will be allowed to defer the submission of your annual financial statements. You can also apply to postpone your company's annual general meeting, as the SSM will not reopen until the MCO is lifted. So, under what circumstances can you leave the building? First, if you are a worker in an essential service industry like I am, you have to go to work. If you have to purchase food, medicine, or daily necessities, you are also free to do so. If you have to leave the state you're in, however, you can do so, but only under the following circumstances. 1. The death of a loved one. 2. A member of your family is seriously ill. 3. You or your family members require medical attention. Or 4. Other matters determined by the district police. Now, let's talk about international travel. Throughout the MCO, Malaysian citizens can only return to the country, but they cannot leave. The opposite applies to foreigners. Now, foreigners can leave, but they cannot enter Malaysia. So if your spouse is a foreigner, there are some exceptions. They will be allowed to enter with you, but they have to undergo medical inspection and quarantine upon arrival. Foreigners who are employed by an essential service industry in Malaysia can also enter upon presenting a letter to the immigration department. During this MCO, public transport such as the light rail, MRT, monorail, taxis, as well as e-hailing services like Grab will operate as usual, while the number of rapid buses will gradually decrease. Face it, we're Malaysians, we live to eat, so how can we ensure an adequate food supply, especially for those who can't cook? The government announced that food and beverage outlets are allowed to operate as usual. However, no dining in is allowed. Customers are only allowed to do takeaway. On top of this, food delivery services are also allowed to continue throughout the period. Some companies, such as KFC and Foodpanda, have implemented a zero-contact food delivery service. When the delivery rider arrives, they will place the food package at a location designated by the customer to avoid person-to-person contact. In Sarawak, the state government has ordered that all food places must close from 8 PM onwards. What if you need those daily household necessities? Well, the good news is that the government has ordered supermarkets to remain open as usual. The bad news is that open-air wet markets and pasar malams cannot operate throughout the MCO. Businesses that are allowed to continue operating include food courts, pharmacies, clinics, sundry shops, delivery logistics, the postal service, customer service centers, garbage collection, and security services, among others. Businesses that must be closed throughout the MCO include boutiques and laundrettes. In addition, some local governments have issued their own directives for the retail industry. One such example is the Kuala Lumpur City Hall stipulating that pasar tani and food trucks cannot operate. Only covered markets are allowed to operate throughout this period. Meanwhile, the Petaling Jaya City Council states that only public markets are allowed to operate. So, some of you may remember that 2020 is a CUTI-CUTI Malaysia year. Unfortunately, that has been cancelled. The Ministry of Tourism announced that 2020 is no longer the year for tourism in Malaysia, and the authorities have halted a number of planned tourism and leisure projects. So if you think this MCO is a chance to go on vacation, then unfortunately you are in for a bad time. You cannot travel within these 2 weeks. If you have booked a hotel, you can negotiate for a refund, although domestic hotels are allowed to continue operating. Guests are not allowed to use most of the hotel's facilities, including the swimming pool, bar, gym, spa, and other entertainment and leisure facilities. In addition to that, Resorts World Genting has announced that they will be suspending all of their operations, including their theme park, casino, and hotel. All the parks under the care of the Kuala Lumpur City Hall and the Forest Research Institute of Malaysia, or FRIM, will be closed. 3 gaming operators in Peninsular Malaysia are also closed. If you had planned to tie the knot within these 2 weeks, first of all, congratulations. Unfortunately, the bad news is that your events will have to be cancelled as they are considered social events. Muslim funerals can have pre-burial prayers where only immediate family members are allowed to participate, but post-burial prayer meetings will not be allowed. A number of Chinese funeral homes and cemetery operators have come out to state that they will comply with the restriction order and have cancelled all grave cleaning and worship activities. The Naga National has announced that they will not be doing any power terminations throughout the MCO. So if you can't go out to pay your power bill, don't worry, your power will remain connected. The National Higher Education Fund PTPTN will also suspend the collection of loan repayments from borrowers until the 30th of June. Bursa Malaysia will continue to operate and car workshops will still be opened, just with minimal staff. For a recap, KiniTV has the recording of the government's announcement of this MCO. The link is down there in the description. The bottom line here, ladies and gentlemen, is that we want to remind everyone that during the restricted order period, you have to do your part to prevent this pandemic from engulfing Malaysia. It is up to all of us to stem this infection. Check your sources and don't be easily influenced by fake news. Remember to remain calm and do not panic. If you receive news that you cannot verify or confirm, don't go ahead and share it around your WhatsApp groups or forward it to your friends and family. Fake news, just like a virus, only brings harm to one another. Subscribe to Malaysia Kini for continuing coverage of the MCO and the COVID-19 crisis, and also follow us on KiniTV for more news from the ground. You should also follow the Ministry of Health on social media as they do frequent daily updates on the situation to help Malaysians become more informed and responsible. I'm Daniel Anthony for KiniTV. Stay safe and stay home, Malaysia.